It felt like the perfect place. Quiet, warm, like it was made just for her. But something was already waiting inside. My name is Emma. A year ago, I was in the worst place I had ever been. After a divorce, panic attacks, and a long depression, I barely left my apartment. Remote work, food delivery, social media, sleepless nights, my reality became a closed loop. I hadn't had a real conversation with anyone in almost a month. Then he appeared. His name was Nathan. I wasn't looking for a relationship. We just ended up replying to the same comment under some video. I didn't think anyone would even notice me, but he did. He wasn't pushy, just attentive. He asked how I was sleeping, sent me playlists. One day, he ordered coffee to my place just because. It was warm, unfair, even painful. But he made me feel alive again. A couple weeks later, we met in person. He was exactly how I imagined him. Hara. Tall, warm voice, attentive eyes. He looked at me like I was the center of something important. I couldn't remember the last time I felt that wanted. Within a month, I wasn't living in my apartment anymore. I was living with him. He offered it himself. "You're not doing well there. It's quieter here. You shouldn't be alone." And it was true. An apartment in a quiet neighborhood, soft lighting, cozy blankets, lavender-scented closets. He took care of me, cooked, tucked me in at night, listened. I couldn't believe I got this lucky. What if I had known? What exactly I was letting into my life? I would have slammed every door behind me. At first I didn't notice anything strange. Hell, just small things, easy to explain. Hell, one morning I woke up and my phone was dead. Shut off. Even though I clearly remembered plugging it in before bed. Another time, I found my sneakers in the bathroom. The sink water was slightly warm, like someone had just washed their hands. Nathan said I might be sleepwalking, that I should rest, maybe take some vitamins. He even joked, "You're so cute when you wander off in your sleep." Sometimes, he would go strangely quiet when I asked what he'd done during the day. He'd sit beside me, stroke my hair, and say, "The only thing that matters is that you're with me now." He never got angry. Ever. He was too calm. Like he was holding something back all the time. Even when I provoked him. Even when I tried to draw out some emotion. And then I started waking up at night. Every time. From the silence. An unnatural silence. No cars, no floor creaks. No breathing beside me. But he was there. Sitting in a chair in the dark. Motionless. Just watching. When I asked what he was doing, he said, "I'm making sure you don't have any bad dreams." He said it with a smile. But I could feel the bad thing was him. And it wasn't outside anymore. It was inside. In the fourth week, I decided to leave. No fights. No shouting. Just pack my things and walk out. I wrote a note. Simple. Calm. Left it on the kitchen table and started folding my clothes into a backpack. When I stepped into the hallway, the door was already locked with a chain. I didn't remember anyone putting it there, and I hadn't heard a single step. But it was there. I reached for it, and then he appeared from around the corner. Calm, gentle, as always. "Where are you going?" he asked. I tried to smile. "Just getting some air." "Going for a walk?" He nodded. "All right, I'll come with you." "No, you don't have to. I just need to be alone for a bit." He didn't move. Didn't get angry. Just watched. And that's when I realized it was getting hard to breathe. Like all the air in the apartment belonged to him, like he decided how much I needed. "Why do you want to leave? It's safe here. Here, it's you, me, us." He stepped closer, placed his hands on my shoulders. "Everything you ever lost. You have it now. Do you really want to throw that away?" And his voice didn't sound like a threat. It sounded like a fact. I didn't leave that day. Or the next. I tried to open the window. It wouldn't budge. Tried to call someone. But the phone turned on, then went dark again. I could hear him walking through the apartment, talking to himself, repeating my name. Sometimes loud. Sometimes, quiet. Sometimes, a whisper from behind the door. I wasn't alone. But I wasn't with someone either. I was with something that no longer pretended to be a man. He had become part of this house. Or maybe the house had become part of him. I started noticing that things in the apartment were changing. Not disappearing, just becoming different. The photo on the nightstand. It used to be me, Mom, sunlight. Now, just me, alone. In front of a gray, empty wall, the mug I used every morning. The good morning text was gone. Just a glossy imprint left behind, like it had been erased from the inside. Clothes in the closet no longer fit me, even though just 2 weeks ago, everything fit perfectly. Now, the sleeves were tight, the collar choked, as if everything in the apartment was adjusting, not to me, but to a new version of me, the one that was supposed to stay with him. One night I woke up. My whole body felt heavy, like something was holding me down. And I realized he was behind me, lying still, breathing. But I didn't feel the warmth of a body. I felt emptiness. "You're happy, aren't you?" he whispered in my ear. "Here, no one leaves you. No one forgets you. No one walks away." I didn't answer, because I couldn't. Because the voice inside me said, "He's using your own words. He knows how you think." And that's when I realized this wasn't about love. It wasn't about care. It was symbiosis. He didn't want me to love him. He wanted me to become him. I finally decided to leave. No bag, no note. Just get up and walk out. In the morning, while he was in the bathroom, I ran to the door. Hand on the lock. The chain. Trembling fingers. My heart pounded so loudly I could hear it in my ears. Click. I pushed the door open and froze. Behind the door was not the hallway, not the stairs, not the street, but a corridor, exactly like the one inside the apartment. Same wallpaper, same light, same doors. I stepped forward and found myself back in my own entryway. He was standing by the mirror, looking at me, smiling. "See?" he said calmly. "There's no outside here. Isn't this what you wanted? For no one to leave you, for no one to forget, for it to last forever." He stepped closer. I backed away and bumped into a door that led again to the same entryway. I understood. The house had folded in on itself. It had become a loop, a cage built for one purpose. To keep me in, I screamed, I fought, I scratched the walls. But every time I opened a door, I walked back into the same room. He no longer tried to convince me. He simply existed. Like air, like light, like a wall, he became this place. And now, I'm part of him. Sometimes I hear someone trying to open the door from the outside. A knock, a whisper, a key in the lock, but he doesn't let them in. He says, "You're not ready." And I wake up in the bedroom again, as if it was all a dream, until I look in the mirror and see a handprint on the glass. Not mine. Grief can echo long after someone is gone, but when a familiar voice starts calling you from the other side, would you answer? My name is Claire. It's been exactly 119 nights since I lost Jordan, not weeks, nights, because it's the nights that stretch longer than they should. Silent, endless, full of air. I don't know how to breathe anymore. We were together for 4 years. Built our lives in this apartment. We made plans, saved money, fought over throw pillows, held hands in silence. And then, a crash. One call. One moment. One hallway with flickering lights, and a nurse who wouldn't meet my eyes. I didn't get there in time. Now it's just me in this place that once held us both. His jacket still hangs by the door. I've tried to take it down more than once, but something always stops me. His coffee mug, chipped and stained, still waits on the shelf like he'll use it again tomorrow. People say time helps, but they never tell you what to do with time that doesn't know what to hold anymore. They don't tell you how to sleep in a bed made for two, or what to say to a silence that never speaks back. The grief didn't fade, it just changed clothes. It became a quiet presence in the corners, in the buzz of the refrigerator, in the click of the door latch, in the way the blanket folds itself. Some days I catch myself pausing mid-step, thinking he's just in the other room. But I know better. The dead don't come back. Or at least not always. It started around the 5th month. I had the TV on, some old sitcom rerun, just background noise to drown out the hum in my skull. I was drifting off on the couch when I heard it. His voice, soft, muted, like it traveled a long way to reach me. "Claire?" I sat up straight. The show was still playing. Nothing unusual on screen. No sound cues. I told myself it was a memory bleeding through, a sound so familiar my brain just filled in the silence. The next day I left the radio on while making tea. Between 2 songs, I heard him again. "Do you think about me?" Like it came from someone sitting just behind me. That voice, that gentle way he had of speaking when he was half asleep and resting his forehead against mine. I turned the radio off immediately. Passive. Then just stood there in the kitchen, waiting for my heart to slow down. Reprofile. It had to be stress. That's what I told myself. But after that, he came more often. Not from the speakers. Not from outside. From inside. In my dreams, in the space between wakefulness and sleep. In the fog just before unconsciousness. He'd speak. Vitas. At first, it was just like before. Sweet, careful, familiar. But slowly, something shifted. He stopped talking about us. About memories. He started telling me about where he was now. How quiet it was. How peaceful. And he always ended the same way. "Come with me. You'll like it here." At first, it was harmless. Dreams that felt like memories. Safe. Familiar. We'd be in the kitchen. Jonah and I. He'd sip tea, tell bad jokes, rest his hand gently over mine the way he always used to. And for a while, I'd forget. Forget that he was gone. Forget that what I was seeing couldn't be real, until I'd wake up every time with a soaked pillow and aching ribs from silent sobbing. But then, I started waking up later, or not at all. Mexico Haida Sword. One night, I dreamt I walked toward the window. Mexico Haida Sword. He was there, outside Mexico Haida Sword, wearing his old brown coat, the one with the torn sleeve. Looking up at me like he used to when waiting by the gate after work, he smiled and said, "Took you long enough. Come on, I've been waiting." I pressed my hand against the glass. Il Prouse. I knew I was dreaming. Il Prouse. But I still reached for him. Il Prouse. And then it hit me. Il Prouse. Il Prouse. Il Prouse. Il Prouse. Il Prouse. I couldn't move. Not in the dream. Not in real life. Il Prouse. Il Prouse. I could feel my body lying on the bed. Paralyzed, like something held me in place, keeping me locked in sleep. He just kept standing there, staring, smiling. His eyes still soft, but hollow. Warm in shape, but without light. Then he said, "You wanted this, so stay." And suddenly, I woke up, like being yanked out of deep water. My sheets were twisted on the floor. My chest was tight, my hands were cold, and on the glass of the window, a mark. Smudged, almost human, like a hand had touched it, from the outside. But I live 3 stories up. There's no balcony, no ledge. Nothing could have touched it, except him. If it was still him. After that, everything changed. He still came, in dreams, in the static hum of appliances, in flickers at the edge of my hearing. But the voice, it wasn't right anymore. At first it was small, just a slight rasp, a slower cadence. But then, the words started shifting. He'd say, "You're clinging to a life that let you go. It's peaceful. You don't have to fight." And most of all, he stopped calling me by name. He used to say it with such softness. Now it felt copied, like someone had learned the shape of my name but not its meaning. And I knew something was wrong. One night I woke up screaming. In the dream, I'd stood in my apartment's hallway. The door was open, and standing just beyond it, him, same coat, same hair, but his face. It wasn't Jonah. It looked like someone had tried to wear his face, like a costume that didn't fit. The skin hung wrong, the eyes weren't his. And when he spoke, it was Jonah's voice, but pitched lower, hollowed out. "You're already halfway here. Why turn around?" I stepped back. Even in the dream, I could feel it. This thing, whatever it was, knew me, knew how to imitate him, how to slip into the cracks of my grief and nest there. But it wasn't him. It couldn't be Zekti. I woke up crying again. Zekti. All the lights were on. I wore tracks. My phone was buzzing on the nightstand. And from the Bluetooth speaker, still unplugged, a whisper. Just let go already, you're tired. It wasn't his voice anymore, but it wore his shape. And it was still waiting. The next morning, I made a decision. I gathered everything that still carried his presence. The notes he left on the fridge, the Polaroids taped to the wall, old voicemails I'd saved out of habit, not because I wanted to erase him, but because something else was feeding off those memories. And it wasn't him. I drove north, far outside the city, to the lake where we once spent a weekend, laughing in the rain, soaked and breathless. It was quiet now, still. I sat on the shoreline, set the voice recorder on a rock beside me, placed a photo album on my lap, and I said clearly, not just to the wind, "You're a part of me, always will be. But whatever's been speaking through your voice, that's not you, and I won't follow it anymore." The wind stirred, in the headphones, static, low and wet, like shallow breath. And then, the voice again. "You're wrong. I'm still right here." But this time, I didn't believe it. Not for a second. Light time, I switched off the recorder, lit the match, watched the fire consume each page, each frozen moment, each piece of audio tape. The smoke carried grief with it, but also clarity. And as the last curl of ash scattered into the sky, I felt something I hadn't in months. Stillness. Real, untainted silence. He was gone, and whatever wore his voice, wore his smile, was gone with him. Sometimes, I still hear it, static from the hallway radio, murmurs just before sleep. But now, I smile, because I know the difference. He isn't there. He's somewhere far better, somewhere real, where no one needs to pretend. And me? I'm here, breathing, finally, living. At first it was just small things, hands shaking, strange dreams. But then the body kept moving, even when she wasn't in it. My name is Claire. In the past 3 years, I've moved 8 times. Screaming neighbors, peeling wallpaper falling onto my pillow, the kind of moldy hallway scent that even prayers couldn't cleanse. It all became a pattern. I was exhausted. Of leases, of suitcases, of never feeling like I belonged anywhere. Then I saw the listing, and I almost laughed. A spacious 1-bedroom in a quiet area, bright kitchen, in an older but well-kept building. The rent? Less than I'd paid for a windowless shoebox downtown. The agency was small, private. The man on the phone sounded kind, professional. He offered a viewing the next morning, and inside, it felt warm. Not flashy, not modern, just human, real. Music was playing faintly from somewhere behind a wall. Calm, low-key. I figured maybe someone turned it on to create a cozy vibe. The windows looked out into a tiny courtyard lined with cherry trees. The scent in the air was a mix of coffee and vanilla, soft, familiar, not a trace of mildew or dust. The agent was tall, gray-haired, constantly smiling, but not the fake kind. At one point, he looked at me and said, "You'll stay here a long time, I can tell." I assumed it was just politeness, but something in his voice felt like he knew more than he let on. I signed the lease the next day. I really thought I'd finally found peace. If only I knew how wrong I was. Comfort boy. At first it was like walking into a commercial for happiness. Comfort boy. I woke up without anxiety. The coffee brewed faster than usual. The shower water was always the perfect temperature. And if there were neighbors, they were silent. No footsteps, no loud music, not even a cough through the wall. The place seemed to understand me. The curtains were my favorite shade. The pillow had just the right firmness. On the shelf, books I'd meant to read for years. I didn't remember bringing them. Maybe I had? My memory was foggy, but I didn't question it. One evening, I noticed music playing softly again. Gentle, relaxing. but I hadn't turned anything on, and I couldn't remember seeing any speakers or radios in the apartment. Still, the music was there. In the kitchen, I found a plate with my favorite cookies. I'd never bought them, but maybe I did? Stress, moving, work, it could all be explained. And every time I started to doubt, the room seemed to respond. More comfort, more warmth, more silence. Too perfect. The window was open, but no breeze. The courtyard, silent. No birds, no kids, no footsteps. As if the world outside was acting. Like it was waiting for me to finally let my guard down. As the days passed, I started noticing more and more things that didn't sit right. Sometimes, when I passed the mirror, my reflection would lag behind, only by a split second, but long enough to freeze me in place. Other times, I'd catch a flicker of a shadow darting across the wall, even though I was alone, or a faint scent in the air, acidic, metallic, drifting in like it came from deep inside the vents. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe the wiring was old, maybe the neighbors were just exceptionally quiet. I went up to their doors, knocked. Nothing. One door had a layer of dust so thick it looked untouched. Flyers stuffed in the mailbox. A rusted doorknob. It felt like no one had lived there in years. I went downstairs to check the mailboxes. There were 8. Only mine had a name. The others, blank, sealed, unused. As if the building wasn't occupied. As if the entire place was made just for me. Then I started seeing cracks, literal ones. A chip in the tile near the sink. Wallpaper curling at the edges. The armchair I'd been reading in. Covered in stains. Old, ground in, grimy. But every time I blinked or turned away, it was all pristine again. Like someone, or something, was editing what I could see. I began to suspect the apartment wasn't the only thing being manipulated. My health shifted. Dry cough. Constant headaches. A weird dryness in my mouth. And that smell in the air. It was stronger now. Always coming from the vents. One night, I unscrewed the grate and peeked inside. Something was dripping. Thick. Dark. Sticky. It wasn't dirt. It wasn't water. Maomian. And in that moment, it clicked. Maomian. They were dosing me. Something in the air. Something to keep me docile. Comfortable. Blind to the truth. It wasn't a sanctuary. Naipian. It was a simulation. And I was the only one alive inside it. Naipian. I needed to be sure I wasn't losing my mind. Naipian. I invited someone over. A real friend. Jenny. We'd known each other since college. Just come by for coffee, I said. Tell me what you think of the place. She agreed. But as soon as she stepped inside, she stopped cold. Claire, she said slowly. You sure someone lives here? What do you mean? This place looks abandoned. I glanced around, and for just a moment, I saw it. Cracked walls. A ceiling stained with brown blotches. The floor was bare concrete. No rugs. No pillows. The furniture was covered in plastic, coated with dust, and the air, thick, sour, like mold and chemicals. I blinked. Everything snapped back to perfect. What do you see? I asked her. She stared at me like I'd lost it. This isn't an apartment, Claire. It's a ruin. You've been living here? I ran to the bathroom and stared at myself in the mirror, sunken eyes. Pale, lifeless skin. I looked like I'd been sleeping on the floor for days. Maybe I had. Then I heard something moving in the vent. And from the hallway, Jenny screamed, Claire, someone's here! I ran out. The front door was locked. Jenny stood shaking in the center of the room. A voice, just now. It said, You're mine now. It's only you here. I grabbed her hand, and we ran, as fast as we could, like fleeing from a fire. Nutamin. Outside, I turned to look back. A voice. The windows were black. No lights. No trace of warmth. A voice. We never went back. A voice. I called the agency. The number didn't exist. Kurol. Later, I brought someone to show them the building. Kurol. There was nothing there. Just a fenced-off lot. An old, crumbling foundation. Kurol. No one had lived there in years. And still, I wonder, Where was I all that time? And who was watching me through the vents? 2 weeks have passed. I've been staying at Jenny's, but I haven't slept properly since. Every night, the same dream. That place again. Not beautiful, not perfect. Its true form. Rotting, breathing, alive. I walk through the hallway and the floor feels soft, like I'm stepping on flesh. Sometimes I hear the faint hiss of a vent. Sometimes I smell that same scent on my skin. Faint, chemical sweet, like someone sprayed perfume right under my nose. I check the mirrors. I stare out the windows. And every time I catch something moving in the background. Blurry, tall, pale. It never gets closer. It waits. Jenny says I need help, that I should talk to someone. But I already know. This isn't a breakdown. It's the house. It chose me. It found me. And now it's waiting for when I crave that peace again, that quiet, that comfort. For the moment I grow tired of people, tired of the noise, and long for silence again. Sometimes I see other apartments, bright, cheerful, perfect. And I wonder, what if they're all the same? Just different masks of the same thing? What if we don't move into these places? What if they move into us? Because the house was never outside. It's in me now. Last night, I woke at 2 a.m., dust on the floor, though Jenny had just cleaned, a handprint on the inside of the window. And on the windowsill, a small bundle, inside it, an old rusted key, and a tag that read, "You'll come back once you're tired of pretending."